to talk about tactics that people use. Some people will claim that they are there to have an adult intellectual conversation. But if you look into it, right, logical fallacies and power plays and stuff, which is a thing, some of these people will use these things. They will say things that assert their superiority over you. They will demean you. And what that does is it makes what you have to say less valuable. They poke holes in your character, and in their ideology, poking holes in your character pokes holes in what you say. It removes the validity of what you have to say. Oh, well, you say this, you must be stupid, therefore what you're saying is stupid, right? And these are all ploys. You should not engage in conversation with anybody who is constantly muting or not giving equal respect in a conversation, right? If somebody joins into a feed and says one thing and gets cut off, right? You need to let that person finish their thought, because you don't even know the point that they're trying to make. And you have cut that person off, and you have ridiculed that person before they even got to their point. At that point, you are giving the person the illusion that it is a conversation, when in reality, it's a monologue. It's an echo chamber, right? If you surround yourself by people who hold the same perspectives as you, you're only going to reinforce your perspective, right? And this even works when people are wrong, right? In ethics, there's a thing called groupthink, right? And groupthink is when you have a lot of people together and they are like almost supporting one another's false ideology. Like, yes, this thing is dangerous, but it's worth the danger because, such and such, right? And these situations happened with like designing rockets that were going to fly into space. Like one of them had to do with foam, and then people are like, oh, it's fine, the foam it's a risk that's worth it, right? And you had all these people backing each other up, all these intelligent, scientifically minded people, right? But groupthink is a dangerous thing, because one person could call out and be like, well, this doesn't make sense, I disagree with you guys. But you have all these people who are like reinforcing each other's ideals, and they will ridicule that person out because what that person says goes against what the group think says. But pretty much, just be wary of people using logical fallacies, right? There's like a bunch of different ones. There's like when somebody, like a red herring, which is when somebody, like, you throw some random thing into the argument and you try to equivalate it to what somebody is saying, right? I don't know them all off the top of my head, but once you understand them, you have an idea of what a logical fallacy is. And it's essentially using logic in a fake way, right? Because logic isn't necessary. You could say two things that are true, and it could be a logically true statement, but in reality, that statement could still be false, right? For instance, one of the things is like, everyone who has ever eaten an onion has died. Therefore, onions kill people. That is a logical fallacy. You are arriving at a conclusion based on an inference. So just keep an eye out for these tactics that people will use if you're actually trying to have a civil discussion. And be wary of when you say something and somebody getting triggered or somebody getting on the defense, because as soon as somebody goes on the defensiveness, they no longer are listening to you. They're only listening to respond, right? And sometimes they're not even listening to respond. Sometimes they're a wall, and at that point, it is just, they're going to give you a monologue. And this is especially true if this is the host of a controversial feed or a stream, with a controversial topic, right? The best that we can do is try to be as unbiased and equally respectful as possible in a conversation. There's nothing wrong with questioning what somebody says, right? If somebody says a thing and you're like, well, where did you get this information from? What does this word mean? Does this word mean other things? So Just keep that in mind. Happy debating.